Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the Voice of Reason. Today, we're continuing our ongoing coverage of the war between the Russian Federation and the Ukraine. Now, before I start, history is repeating itself. Just as we saw the horrible conditions and the horrible response that took place in Hawaii, specifically Maui, Lahaina, the town of Lahaina, which was burnt down because of a preventable wildfire. When I say preventable, if left-wing politics, the Democrat Party that was in charge of Maui, had allowed proper irrigation and the proper use of water, well, the fire probably would have never happened. And now we're seeing in Western North Carolina near Asheville, hundreds of Americans dead, towns destroyed. And what is cackling Kamala talking about? She's talking about $200 billion to Volodymyr Zelensky to prop up the Ukrainian state, and giving $750 to Americans who have lost everything in Western North Carolina. It is unbelievable, some of the reports that we are hearing out of Western North Carolina, especially in regards to what, in some cases, FEMA is doing, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, blocking Americans from coming to the aid of American citizens. We have confirmed reports of American veterans who have set up medical clinics in Western North Carolina, who have been there for days. And then FEMA rolls in and decides that, you're not licensed, you're not accredited by our agency, so you now have to leave. And at the same time, they have nothing. FEMA has nothing to support those types of operations after they evict those folks. Now, on top of that, billions of dollars have been redirected from FEMA, again, from what was originally designed to support the United States in times of disaster. Those monies have been transferred to illegal aliens from Haiti, Venezuela, and other nation states, or other peoples from other nation states that are illegally entering the United States, brought in by the Joseph Biden figurehead administration. But again, cackling Kamala, $200 billion to Volodymyr Zelensky and the Ukrainians, $750 to Americans facing disaster. Now, the war continues. The Russians continue to advance north after operations that took place near Volodar, however you want to call it, coal gift, the gift of coal town. The Russian MIC, or military industrial complex, the capability of the Russians to produce artillery, tanks, armored infantry fighting vehicles, aircraft, bombs, that capacity was greatly underestimated. by Western military analysts. They had wrongly believed, because of the fall of the Soviet Union, a lot of that capacity crumbled into dust. And they're learning that's not at all what has happened. They're learning very quickly that even when supplying the Ukrainian military with hundreds of billions of dollars in aid, direct intel support, quite possibly direct military support, it's not enough. The Russian military is enlarging itself, and more importantly, that military industrial capacity is far outpacing even the wildest estimates of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. They had no idea of the capacity of Russia to quickly ramp up its military industrial complex, and we're seeing that. And we're really seeing right now the fruit of that capability. And we're seeing that all across the front line right now. Now, additionally, we're seeing the Russians prepare for another series of offensive operations taking place near Orkiv. We are seeing the buildup of Russian forces that, in all probability, will launch an offensive along the entire line of contact near Zaporizhzhia and Orkiv, with the goal of possibly enveloping Orkiv. What we'll probably also see is the Pokrovsk salient extend itself. We will probably see the front line running to the southwest of the Donbass offensive extend and essentially reset the proverbial line of scrimmage, the line of contact across the main axes of advance near Pokrovsk. So, incredibly dire situation for the Ukrainians. Again, Russians preparing offensive operations near Orkiv, the continued offensive operations that are taking place near Ugledar, Volhodar, and the continued Russian offensive operations in the Donbass as well. So essentially, we are seeing offensive operations by the Russians across the entire line of contact. And as we speak, Russian operations, counter operations, are taking place within Kursk Oblast against this really insane Ukrainian operation that diverted much-needed military equipment and combat brigades towards an operation that essentially did nothing except remove capacity and capability from the where the main frontal operations are taking place. Now, additionally, it is also being reported that the Russians, by the summer of 2025, next year, will have an additional 100 to 120,000 troops that will be used as reserve operations, that can be used for offensive operations. We suspect this is going to be a very long winter for the Ukrainian military. The Russians will continue this war of attrition, and that war of attrition will amplify itself over the winter. And we suspect that Russian offensive operations will continue into the winter, and then finally culminating in an all-out offensive that will probably take place sometime in June, July, August of next year, in which 100 to 180,000 additional Russian troops will be brought into the front line and theater of operations. I believe at this point the Russians believe that this war will be won over the winter, and then finally large-scale operations in which we could see the redeployment of the Russian shock army. The Russian shock armies from World War II may be reproduced, replicated, and used next year. And again, we're continuing to see this Russian military grow rapidly in size. We think by December of this year, December 2024, we will see this Russian expansion start to pay dividends. And then 6 months after December of this year, a rapid expansion of the Russian military will have occurred, in which we could probably see up to 1 million Russian troops deployed against Ukrainian forces. And with those excess troops, it's hard to say what the Russian plans are, but after a winter war of attrition that will culminate in the breaking of the Ukrainian military, I think it's safe to say that the war will probably wind down towards the late summer of next year if we don't see an entire collapse of the Ukrainian military at some point before that. So again, we're watching things very closely that are taking place, again, near Orikhiv. We think the Russians are going to start renewed offensive operations in Zaporizhia. They will continue offensive operations near Volhodar. They will continue offensive operations in the Donbass. They will continue rolling up Ukrainian forces in Kursk. And we will be here to report on what is happening. As always, thank you for joining us. More to come very, very soon. Have a good day.